Yes, she's recording now.
Morning, everybody. I'd like to call this meeting to order. It's 9 o'clock. We'll start out with roll call.
Shooty. Here. Carl.
Here.
Weiner. Murdig.
Here.
Ellefson. Blake Ellefson. Mackenzie.
Here.
Negro. Metzinger.
Here.
Campbell.
Here.
Ray is excused. Kinney.
Here.
Hufall.
Here.
Frantic. Here.
Here.
Fendor.
Here.
Berlin.
Here.
Brand. Hussein.
Here.
Pickup.
Here.
Vitek.
Here.
Hubert.
Here. Okay, like next thing on the agenda, we'll have a little moment of silence before the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, will you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next, we need a motion to approve the adoption of the agenda. Yes.
I'd like to ask that number 5E come off the agenda at the request of our attorneys.
Okay, we need a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll make a motion that we approve the agenda as amended.
Motion by Kathy. Ron Stender will second. Seconded by Ron Stender. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Public comment period. We have one person signed up. Gigi Cloud, you want to take that either up here at the table or right there and turn that mic on.
Good morning. My name is Gigi Cloud. I reside in City of Ashland, Ashland County. I'm here again to voice my concerns regarding the situation with Kim Levasseur and the recent information regarding the incident with the let's see. Yes, the county jailer. My concern is why the sheriff would say during a board meeting on Monday night that Ashland County will be doing an internal investigation of Kyle Cadet. Isn't that a serious conflict of interest with them being related? I thought Zucchi's political platform was about integrity. It doesn't even seem transparent at all. During the Finance Committee board meeting on 4/20/23, just a few days ago, Dan Grady told the committee that Kim Levasseur would probably be filing an appeal regarding the grievance decision. And he said, and I quote, "The hearing itself went 19 hours and the county board does not have to watch all 19 hours. Isn't that your job as the board to watch, to get an accurate account of what happened? Why would you want to be attempting to dissuade the board from doing its job?" I implore the county that they should be doing an internal investigation on the sheriff as to his actual residency. It is well known throughout the community that he lives in Bayfield County. With all this information, this situation wouldn't even be an issue.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I was having some technical difficulties, but I'm back now.
Anyone else? Anybody online for public comments? Anybody online for public comments? Last call for public comments. All right, we'll move right along to appointment. They have one appointment today, the appointment of Brett Martinson to the Ag and Extension Committee. Need a motion to approve? Yes, Mike.
Mike Burley makes that motion.
Matt,
I'll second it.
motion by Mike, seconded by Matt. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. Go to number 5, regular agenda discussion action items. Approve the March 8th, 2023 County Board meeting. Minutes, I should say. Yes.
I would so move that they be passed.
Do we have a second? Motion made by Bill Metzinger, seconded by Rich Huber. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Joint dispatch update.
All right, thank you. Okay, so everybody has a giant booklet in their packet. I've been going over through the whole consolidation plan. It's still a work in progress, so things are subject to change. I will say that the committee that's been working on this includes Supervisors Mertig and Stendor. So they've attended most of the meetings. So if I get something wrong, please correct me, or if you have something to add. So basically what we're looking at is merging the two dispatches departments. Merge dispatch, right, the plan is to be in Washburn in Bayfield County. They have more space there and a better technology infrastructure there. They would be setting up a separate department with a separate department head. All the employees would be Bayfield County employees. They would, all of Ashland County employees would transfer over there if they so wish. That's their choice. As far as further on employees, they would get the higher of the pay scales, which is Bayfield County's, and they would get the Bayfield County benefits too. Ashland County would be contributing 50% of the costs initially. That may change a couple years down the road after we have good data on how much dispatch is actually used by both counties. And so it may switch to a per call basis then, but we really need good data now before we can do that. So implementation time, we're looking at January 1st, 2025. And the reason that was chosen is because it's going to take us about that long to get everything together, to get all the technology together, ordered and delivered and installed. Any infrastructure upgrades needed, it's going to take a while. And we also figured that January 1st is the beginning of a budget year. So it kind of makes the most sense to do it that way. Is joint dispatch going to be cheaper? No. The long and the short of it is it's going to be a little bit more expensive. The reason being is that we're hiring more dispatchers. In order to apply for the grant that we're applying for to pay for all this next gen 911 upgrade, the state is requiring that there be 2 dispatchers on duty at all times, or I should say a minimum of 2 at all times. This allows a better response time for people calling in. It also allows for the use of emergency medical dispatch, which Ashland County does when we have dispatchers available. And that is if, say, somebody's having a heart attack and you call in, they'll stay on the phone with you to help guide you through keeping that person alive with performing CPR or some other life-saving intervention until an emergency responder can get there. So whether that's a cop or an ambulance or a fire department or what have you. But they stay, and that's why you need at least 2 dispatchers, because that person cannot get off the phone while they're doing that. So that's going to be a huge benefit for everyone. We also think that joint dispatch is going to provide overall better service for the residents of both counties. So so like I said, they're going to set up a separate department. That department will be answerable to a governing board, and that agreement's still being worked out. But essentially what we decided is the board is going to consist of 6 members, 3 from each side. And that is the 2 administrators, the 2 sheriffs, and an appointment from one of a county board member. So the board chair would appoint this person to the committee like they do any other committee. There's also going to be a policy board that's non-voting, but that's where all the firefighters and all the different police departments can all talk about the issues that are affecting them and make recommendations to the oversight board. The idea is that way we can get input from the people who are on the ground and on the field every day and make changes as necessary. We are going to have a bunch of upfront costs. The most expensive is being a new radio tower. That's going to need to be done. You know, I think I've said it here before, we received that local county and tribal assistance money from the feds, which is essentially a pilot payment for our national forest in the county. That was $577,000 last year, and it's again this year. So that's a $1.14 million that we don't have designated for anything, that as far as we know today is one-time monies. Now, could Congress fund it again in the future? Yes. And I believe that that's going to be part of the Senate, at least proposes, in the budgets coming up. However, since that hasn't happened, we can't count on it. We have to treat it like one-time money and invest it in my opinion, invest it in the long-term good of the county. So that means capital projects that are one-time expenses. And that would mean that we don't have to borrow, but that's a decision the finance committee and the board can make at a later date, how we do that. And just to segue into the next item on the agenda, as part of this grant that's due May 1st. So we're almost there to that point of applying for it. Again, you have to have 2 dispatchers on duty just to apply. So Bayfield County is in the process of doing that right now. And they will have 2 dispatchers on 24/7 by May 1st. So, you know, in the next week. Really. They are asking us to pay 30% of that extra cost. So it comes to around 30 grand, I think, this year, and then 60 next year. So that would be a sign from us that, yes, we're committed to this. So that is on the agenda for you guys to approve or disapprove. But other than that, we will get that application in by the 1st. The Department of Military Affairs has very strongly, well, not 100% guaranteeing, but very strongly suggesting that we will be eligible for more grants in the next cycle, because they realize how expensive all of this equipment is and upgrading everything. There's also a slight chance, and I think it will come out in some form, is Speaker Voss is pushing something called innovation grants in the budget. And what that is it rewards municipalities. So two counties or a city and a county or two cities, two towns and villages, however it is, to merge services like we're doing with joint dispatch. The idea is to reward those communities for merging services to gain greater efficiency in the long run. And I think that's something the state will be pushing more of in the future. But so Speaker Voss is very high on this. The Senate has been somewhat tepid about it, but I imagine something will come through in the budget because the speaker is so strong on this. So you have that's most of the details, but I'll happy to answer any questions. Okay.
This question goes to you, Dan, and to Ron. When you're making these plans, when you're talking about central Ashland County, when you get to Pinocchio Mountain Range, that has very, very bad reception out there. We have snowplow drivers who are out there and they don't have signals that they can be reached at. So let's make sure whatever we're buying machinery for radios, that test comes from out there where it's really hard to get reception.
I spoke with the sheriff yesterday.
Microphone.
I spoke with the sheriff yesterday and he's gonna look into, we have a lot of towers around the area. And he's gonna get hold of the companies and see if we can use their towers for repeaters in that area that'll take care of the dead spots.
The more towers they put up, the less reception we get out there. I think everybody knows that.
He did bring up, but we are.
Just make sure that they're testing it before they spend all this money on it. Thank you.
Don't we already have two dispatchers at all times? One here and one in Bayfield County?
But no, it has to be two dispatchers at each PSAP, at one PSAP. So public safety answering point. Ashland County has two dispatchers about 16 hours of the day, not 24. Bayfield County does not have two dispatchers all the time. And the grant says you applying PSAP has to have two dispatchers on 24/7.
And what's the requirement after it's consolidated?
The requirement after consolidation is minimum two at all times. We will have times when we have four. So if there's a big festival going on in Ashland, they're going to have four dispatchers on. If there's a big thing going on in Bayfield County or like concert in the corner or something, they're going to have 4 or 5 dispatchers on to handle any overflow. Overnight, generally they'll have 2. But yeah, you're going to have 2. You have to have 2 to apply, and you have to have 2 going forward. Bill.
According to what I just heard, Bayfield County wants Ashland County to pay them $30,000 this year.
It's this year, yes.
Okay, what are we getting anything out of that $30,000? Because if they have the 2 dispatchers and we don't have a system, we're paying $30,000. And are we getting anything, or are we just getting that in place so that we qualify for a grant?
We're getting that in place so we qualify for the grant. We're not actually getting any material benefit right away. But again, you have to have two dispatchers on at all times to even apply for the grant. So we get the ability to apply for the grant.
You mentioned in the future, as far as cost share, you would look at the number of calls, so we don't have good data on that right now.
No, we have to decide even what is a valid call.
So there's that. But if we're going to do emergency medical dispatch in the city of Ashland, we have a fire department with trained EMTs. That's a short run to the hospital. It's hard to imagine that very many of those calls in Ashland, at least with the EMTs, that there'd be a need for the emergency medical dispatch, or at least it wouldn't be very long because the hospital's right here. So, I'm not knowing all of the details about fire departments and ambulance services and other part of both counties. Just the metric of using number of calls, however that gets defined, may not be a good reflection on costs. So I would suggest not just the number of calls, but the length of calls, because some of those emergency medical dispatches, especially outside the Ashland city limits, may be much longer calls. And then there might be other metrics that we really haven't thought of yet. So whatever language goes into the agreement on cost sharing in the future, I would suggest something that says, we will cost share this and look at various metrics that reflect the true cost of this. So you're not boxed into one metric, namely just the calls.
Right. And Supervisor Stender, I mean, you used to be a police officer. Can you sort of explain what the difference between different calls are? So they kind of understand why we don't have data?
You brought up a good point that, say Bayfield County for a month is getting 15,000 calls. Ashland County is getting 25,000 calls. What do these calls consist of? Do they consist of a police officer calling in to run a plate number? Is that a call? Or are we just talking calls for service? Right now, we're going through that because we're not exactly sure, like you said, which, how we're going to categorize these calls of what's coming into the dispatch service. They have to handle them all. But, you know, what's a call for service, you know, compared to just somebody inquiring some information on a plate number or something like that. So that was brought up. We are checking into that. We've got to come up with something so we get a fair idea of how we're going to charge things.
What this system will allow us to do is to give people better service. The best example was one that Dan gave last night. Someone is having a heart attack. Maybe they're down in Glidden, and maybe we have to pick them up for some reason. Somebody can stay on the phone with them until they have emergency staff get to them, talking them or their family member through it, making sure that everybody tries to stay calmer, because calmer's always better during these kinds of things. We get to deliver better service, and both Bayfield and Ashland County benefit from this. That's the biggest part of this is that, along with, we have to upgrade to that next gen 911 system anyways. It's nicer if we duplicate up with Bayfield County, and it will help us on some of the costs, not all of them. But this is just a better system.
Just to piggyback on what Laura has said, I agree totally with the joint dispatch, and having two on-call emergency dispatchers. They get a lot of calls for non-emergent lift assist, but during that call, they'll have another emergency that they have to handle. And this would free up that person, you know, to assist the other emergency call. Thank you.
When would our employees turn into Bayfield County employees? If we're not starting until January 1st, 2025 is upon, when is that going to take effect as far as our employees?
Our employees would be Bayfield County employees January 1st, 2025, except there's going to be a department head hired in between that time period to start working on the consolidation. That person could be somebody from Bayfield County or from Ashland County or from the outside. That hasn't been determined yet. So it's possible one could move over now or in the next few months.
Dan, was it clear that the Ashland County employees would be given the job, or they'd have to apply? I guess I didn't understand that.
No, they would be given the job. They're automatically given the position. So it's up to them whether they want to accept it or not.
I just wondering what the reason we're hiring. This calls for two additional dispatchers. Is that to cover 24/7, 7 days a week?
Yes, that's to cover 24/7, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Or 366 next year.
Yeah, I think this is probably the right thing to look at doing. And, you know, when you look at law enforcement and the changes, I appreciate the work that Mr. Sindor has done for us. But it's all changing, and what it's going to look like 5 years from now will not look anything like it does today, I'm sure. Most officers are dispatched, self-dispatched almost by computer. And I think we're going to continue to see that trend. Whatever we can do to take advantage of regionalization, I think is smart. And I appreciate the work that's been done, and I support this. Thank you.
One other thing that everybody should know is the agreement's being written in such a way that other counties can join at a later date. They would have to, of course, buy into it, but other counties will be able to join to create a bigger partnership.
Mike,
This is Mike. For those who don't know, we discussed this last week at the Finance Committee, and we recommended that we go forward with this. And with that, I make a motion that we proceed and go forward.
Is that the first? Because if it is, I'll do the second in support of this.
Is that the first?
It is, that's the motion.
That's the motion.
Okay, then I'll second that, because it was also passed by PPLE last night too.
motion made by Mike Berlin. Go forward with the Bayfield County, Ashland County joint venture for dispatch. Laura Negro made a second. All those in favor say aye.
Hi.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Next item is what about?
Go to
Yeah.
5C, Bayfield County dispatch request. I have nothing on that.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's okay. So,
Is it,
so this is the actual approving, giving Bayfield County the money for this year and next year, this next item agenda.
Yeah, what we were discussing was just the update. And my understanding is that motion that Mike made and that Laura seconded was actually for item 5C, is that?
Yeah, that's correct. And yeah, and there's no harm in continuing to support it. So we are in D now. So we're actually on C now. If we could get a clear vote on giving Bayfield County the money, just so the record is not confused.
Bill?
Is the $30,000 for this year and is going to double till 60,000 next year?
Yes, because this year's prorated. Yeah, this year's prorated because the year is, we're already 5 months, past 4 months of the year.
Clarence?
I'll make a motion that we approve the Bayfield County request.
Motion made by Clarence. Bill?
I will second that motion.
Seconded by Bill Metzinger. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Enterprise lease loan.
Chief Deputy Delegate is on the line.
Good morning. So I talked to two of the committees. Can you hear me all right, Dan?
Yeah, you're on.
Okay. So I talked with the Finance Committee and the PPL Committee regards to a concern that we had here at the Sheriff's Department. I guess when I took office here back in February, one of the things is our condition of our squad cars here at the Sheriff's Department. We were kind of in a position where we're falling behind on having vehicles that have high mileage. They're becoming unsafe, and we're sticking a lot of money into them as far as repair bills. And so one of the things that I looked at is what would be financially feasible for the county to achieve the goal to replace these squad cars with the sheer amount of squads that we have over 100,000 miles. So basically, out of the 16 squad cars that we use on a daily basis on patrol, we're pushing 7-8 of them that are hovering right around the 100,000 mile mark, and some up to 150,000 miles. So what I did is I looked throughout the state, and a lot of departments for cost savings were looking at this enterprise lease program. So I dug my heels into that. We got some quotes. I talked to the guy of how the program kind of works, and basically is how it works is you lease a vehicle. Then you would, whether on this one that you're seeing on the board is a 4-year lease, by about 100,000 miles, you're getting rid of them vehicles, because enterprise at 100,000 miles or right around that area are getting their highest resale value for them. And then basically what happens is once they resell the vehicles, Ashland County gets 100% of that resale back into our account, which we can put towards our next purchase of our vehicles. I did look at the maintenance program of the enterprise program too, which it's kind of, I guess I'll give you my view of it, that I don't believe we need to buy into the maintenance program, just because of the fact that we're going to be getting rid of these vehicles before their warranties are up on them. So any big fixes of drivetrains, engines, stuff like that, they're all covered up to 100,000 miles in 5 years. And then obviously your traditional 3-year, 36,300 or 3-year bumper to bumper warranty on the vehicles. On the sheet that we got up now, we look at replacing 7 of our vehicles right now. That would be 4 into our patrol and two administration vehicles that are obsolete right now that we can't even use. They're actually sitting in the back of the sheriff's department with mechanical problems. So we're down short on them vehicles. So with them being replaced, we look at our first year being prorated at $43,000. That would be our payment this year to obtain these vehicles. From there moving forward, our following years would be $87,000 for annual payments. Just so everybody knows that in that figure of 87,000 per year, that's included our installs that we put in our vehicles to equip them. So we're paying about $50,000 now for a vehicle, for a squad vehicle, and then probably another right around 17,000 to equip the vehicle. So we're looking at about $67,000 per vehicle to get one on the road. So that 87,000 covers the installs too. So we won't have to pay that extra. That'll be part of our lease program moving forward here. And my plan is what I've tried to do is now that as we move forward with these vehicles, we stick to the same vehicles. So in our next rotation after the 4 years of these vehicles, we can try to reuse that equipment into the same vehicles again to save the county the $17,000 that we'd have to pay to reinstall it. Now there would be a little bit of a on the new vehicles, a little bit of an install fee, which is a lot less than 17,000. We'd probably look at, I don't know, about 3,000 or 4,000 to install the equipment into them. But we plan on saving that on our next go around with these to reuse the equipment again. And then as far as the maintenance program, I'll touch that again. The maintenance program, we can buy onto the maintenance program, which is $44 a month. But that does not include tires and brakes. We'd still be responsible for them. So the way I look at that is, so for $528 a year, you're probably just paying for oil changes on that. You're not really getting anything else out of that for their service plan. Plus, then the other big major repairs would be covered under warranty. Does anybody have any questions this far?
Yeah, this is Dick Poofel. I have a question for you. Did you by any chance say for instance, a 10-year projection on how much this is going to save Ashland County over that period?
I don't, Dick, because we haven't done this program before, so I don't know with the type of vehicles we have and how many vehicles we have to replace. So we'd have to do it for a couple of years to see what we're saving. And I think we're saving because we're getting a lot. Like I look back at our records for the sheriff's department on vehicles we were selling, and we weren't getting that much for them because we were selling them either on a private market here just out of Ashland, and local people were bidding on them. Enterprise showed us, like Green County, for an example, they were getting a lot of higher resale on their vehicles just because they were selling them back through Enterprise and they got such a huge market to sell vehicles. And like on the Dodge or the Chevy Tahoes that we're looking at, they were getting anywhere from 10 to 15,000 for them things back on resale. So that's a lot higher than we've seen. But to get you hard numbers, we'd have to be in this program for a little while to see the cost savings. But I will tell you this, that even that number of 87,000, that will go down after these leases because we won't have the installs in them. Plus then a resale goes back on top of there, bringing your lease payments back down every year.
Bill,
Has the sheriff's department committee or the finance committee, has this been brought to their attention and discussed?
Yes.
Which committees?
Both of them, yes.
any more questions? Matt?
Yeah, the city of Ashland went to this program, and the other thing that the city found in this with their police vehicles in particular was a significant gas mileage savings. And if we do this, I would recommend that we look at getting hybrid vehicles where we can. And I think that's where we'll see our most significant savings is in mileage. The enterprise does take back the city cars and or vehicles, I should say, and sells them. And it's been a good program for the city. Bill Hagstrom, our chief of police, I'm sure would be happy to, and I'm sure probably already has talked to Nathaniel, but everything I've seen on it, it's been a win for us. And I can't see where it wouldn't be the same for the county. And in particular, if we go with the hybrids where we can to reduce our mileage expense. Thank you.
Liz?
Now, when Mr. Delegan, when you talk about installs, does that include your police radios and all updated equipment? Because I know there's been a problem with police radios on the scanner. I've heard from dispatchers that they can't hear very well.
Yeah, that's including our radios, our dividers in the vehicle so people can transport prisoners. All that stuff's included in that 17,000.
Yes, Rich?
Nate, can you please address the repair costs for the last year or two?
Yeah, so I went back, pulled records for the sheriff's department for the years of 2021 and 22. And basically the breakdown I did was I took all the vehicles that we had in our fleet and I took the vehicles that have 95,000 miles on them up to 150,000 miles. And I pulled the repair records on them because that's where we were seeing our highest money we were spending on there. For 2021, in that group of vehicles, we paid approximately just a little over $11,000 in repairs for them vehicles. So what we were seeing is that vehicles hitting 100,000 or over, we were starting to put rear ends in vehicles, front ends with bearings and stuff like that. Obviously at 100,000, big brake jobs we were doing on vehicles. There was transmission problems at that point that we were paying for. So them are some of the big ticket items that we were seeing. And then in 22, that same group of vehicles that were 95,000 to 150,000, we paid another almost 10,500 for repairs on them vehicles. So that's where we're seeing our significant amount of money is them vehicles that are getting up to 100,000. And with Enterprise, that's when we're going to flush the vehicles out. So we'd get our best resale for them. Plus then we can hopefully don't get hit with them high repair costs like that.
Yes, Rich?
I have a question. If we went to hybrid vehicles, that price would change then for the lease?
Yeah, so we'd have to get pricing from Enterprise on the hybrid vehicles. I think like what Matt's talking about too, I know the city of Ashland, I think on their administration vehicles, they use hybrid, I don't know that on their patrol vehicles they have with them Tahoes.
Any more questions? Laura,
This is Lauren Negro. I'd like to make a motion that we support this.
I'll second that motion. Motion made by Laura to support this enterprise lease loan, seconded by Louis Carl. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
We go to 5E. Disapprove town of LaPointe notice of claim.
Pull that off the agenda.
What?
We pulled that off the
Why
agenda.
don't you tell me?
We did that under item number 2. During the approval of the agenda.
Okay, never mind. County Bad River Tribal Meeting update.
Okay, so a few weeks ago, we had a meeting with the Bad River Tribe. I'm trying to remember who was there, Supervisor Kinney, Stendor, Berlin, Hufall, Mackenzie. I believe that was it, myself, Blake Ellison, Sheriff Supke. Yeah, Supervisor Berlin. So you guys can feel free to chime in. Also, I think it was a good meeting. I think it was positive. I think there's some areas that we definitely agree on, and we're going to be moving forward on. One is a clean water resolution for Lake Superior. I believe the tribe's going to take first action on that. It'll be a joint proclamation from both the tribe and the county. So we should see that here, hopefully for our next board meeting. I believe they were going to take immediate action. 2 is furthering the Lake Superior Science Center. I don't know if all of you heard about that, but there's an effort to build a science center in this area to study the lake and the effects of climate change and pollution and everything else on the lake. There is an appropriations request into Congress right now for it. But this is an effort that's being worked out between the county, the city, and the tribe. We're sort of at the beginning stages, but the tribe is very interested in continue pursuing this idea. I believe Northern colleges are going to be involved too. So, and there's a possibility of UW Superior also. So, we're looking at a broader community and facility, one that can help everyone. So they're very interested in that. And we're in the process of setting up a meeting right now, which I believe will be at Bad River in the very near future. We have another meeting with the tribe scheduled for June 15th. But overall, I think it went very positive. I think there's a lot of areas of cooperation and there weren't really any areas of disagreement. I don't know. Supervisor Berlin, what do you think?
This is Mike Berlin, regarding the meeting with the tribe and the county. I like the idea that the tribe had stepped up to the plate and communicated with Mayor McKenzie with regards to some of our homeless and what have you. As a matter of fact, the tribe stepped up to and offered some funds as well. And I'm not sure if the city has transposed in documents back and forth or who you're communicating with at the present time. I'm thinking Chairman Wiggins, but yeah, that was positive. Yeah, that came out much better than I expected. It really did.
Any questions? If not, we'll go to 5G. Town of Sanborn update.
Okay. So as you all know, I was in Madison not too long ago, talking to our legislators. I got the distinct impression that the state is not going to do anything about the Sanborn situation. They are going to wash their hands of the whole thing. They're going to say, sorry, you're out $2 million, but too bad. There'll be no tax refunds for tribal members. The town of Sanborn was trying to get a loan from the Bureau of Public Land Commissioners. That is not going to happen. I don't know how they're going to handle Sanborn going forward is still up in the air. There's a lot of options out there, none of them good. One of them is to buy out all the non-tribal properties at assessed value. And so the state would own all the properties. There's talk of levy limits, there's talk of dissolution, there's talk of just also every kind of option you can imagine. But they are of a different mind than we are. And I think the odds of anything getting done are pretty slim. We're going to keep trying, obviously, but legislative leadership just does not want to do anything. So I expect we'll hear more in June as we get closer to the state budget being passed. But it doesn't look good. And I hope I'm surprised. Yes, sir.
I think, isn't there a joint finance or budget hearing that's going to be held over at Woodruff, Minocqua area? I think tomorrow or the next day.
Yes, there's one in Minocqua.
Would it be wise for us to send somebody over there and provide testimony at that hearing to have them reconsider what your suspicions are?
We could, but I'll be honest, WCA is working on this pretty hard with leadership and the governor. Because, there's 4 or 5 counties that are affected by this: Sawyer, Bayfield, Ashland, Iron, and Vilas. So they are working on this issue hard to push it. It's just the legislature, leg council especially, doesn't believe that anything needs to be done. That taking the properties off the tax rolls going forward is all that needs to be finished. And the decision whether or not to give us anything is just, well, how the legislature operates.
I'd like to see if possible, I get that it takes a commitment to drive over there to testify, but normally they accept written testimony. And I'm wondering if we could, if we don't already have something, we should have a fact sheet that we could send over and ask that it be included in the official record for the hearing.
Yeah, we can do that.
Thank you.
Perfect.
When we're talking about this issue, I'd like each one of you to look or put your taxes, what you have to pay in your head, the amount that you pay. What these people in the town of Sanborn were dealt with, their taxes were $15,000 on their house with no notice that it was going up. It went to $35,000. If this can happen to the people there, it can happen to anybody of us sitting here at the table. And I believe we should have people at that meeting in Minocqua to keep it on the front burner. The state's always going to say no until the end. So we can't let this go. We need to push people down there that this was not right the way it was handled.
Well, just so everybody understands, the background is the 7th Circuit Court of Appeals in Chicago. That's a federal court. Issued a ruling stating that the tribal properties on the reservation owned by enrolled tribal members are not taxable.
Right.
The reason why Sanborn was hit so hard, and they all saw a 218% tax increase, was because 80 to 85% of the property went off the tax roll.
Right.
And they still had the same levy amount. So the remaining 10 to 15% had to pay everything out, had to pay the entire levy. That can't happen. That decision only applies to the Lake Superior Chippewa. It does not apply to anybody else. And it only applies to property on the reservation. So if a Bad River member owns property in the city of Ashland, it's still taxable. It has to be on the reservation for it to be not taxable.
I understood that.
Yeah, just so I'm stating it so everybody knows,
Yeah.
because there's a lot of people who probably may not know the whole thing.
And then the second part of my question, it wasn't really fair to those town of Sanborn landowners for their taxes. They didn't get a notice that they were going up that much.
No, they didn't.
No, and that was the other thing that they're angry with. There was no notice that they're doubling and tripling. Thank you.
Yep.
Bill,
I think there's one little factor that was left out. The town of Sanborn had their border review before the state. They had their border review and the state set the equalized value based on their border review. And so they had the border review before July 31st. So the equalized value that was assessed was actually the 100%, 85 that was taken off and the 15 that was still there. And so when the ruling came about in like October, then they reconvened the border review and took off the 85%. So, but the state never changed the equalized value. They left the equalized value at whatever that was set at the border review. So as a result of that, the residents in the town of Sanborn that did pay taxes had to cover all that. But the state should take care of some of that this year because they'll take it off the equalized value. So, but that was, to me, the state should have taken it off the equalized value right away. And they failed to do that. So it's not going to have a permanent effect as far as, the taxpayers there, but it'll affect anybody in the Ashland School District too. But anyhow, I just saying, hopefully it'll come down to a lot lower level or whatever.
Yeah, and January 1st is when that equalized value will change. So, and yeah, it's been a mess, and
I agree, Dan, it's a mess.
I'll be honest, I expect another decade of litigation. So
Just keep working on it. Don't give
well,
up.
we're gonna keep working on it. I mean, there's nothing we have to. I mean,
So-
and we keep advocating for a solution that's fair to everyone. Fair to the tribal members, fair to the non-tribal members, fair to the residents of the Ashland School District, fair to all the residents of the county. We believe the court order should be enforced and that everybody should be treated fairly, and hopefully the state comes to that conclusion down the road.
Pat,
So we've talked a lot about the state not wanting to help with this and the odds of anything changing from where they currently are not being so good. But what we really haven't talked about is if we look forward, is there anything on the proactive end that we could be doing as a county or with Sanborn or others, or possibly the state, to get a better outcome than we might get if we just leave this to whatever happens without any thought going forward?
Well, that's a difficult question to answer because we don't know what the state's going to do with the town itself. The state could leave the town alone and change nothing. The state could cut its levy limit dramatically to reflect the new equalized value. The state could just dissolve the whole town and put all of its residents in surrounding municipalities. Or the state could take over the town himself, literally buy up all the property and take it over. So it's kind of hard to plan for the future if you don't know which way they're headed, because they're all very different options. So I think we're gonna have to wait till June before we can actually figure out where we're gonna go.
So here's a question in my mind. At the county tribal meeting, they took future agenda items, one of which was Bad River would like to reacquire as much land as possible within the reservation boundaries. And when I think about that question, and I think about this situation, is there anything that any of us on the proactive end could do with this situation, as difficult as it is, to perhaps work towards an outcome that would have some silver lining to it, all things considered, and given some of the money that's out there for funding various things. And if the state sees perhaps one direction as a more desirable outcome than others, is there something that we could be doing on a topic like that to start making consideration of that? And it's also accurate, I believe, that Ashland County owns some forest land in the reservation. And it makes me wonder if the question that's on the next agenda for the county tribal meeting, if we could also look at that as part of something that's desirable to discuss and work on with both. So
Yeah, I do think the most desirable outcome for all involved is that the tribe just purchases the property from the landowners, which is their goal, to own all the property. I don't know if that's going to happen or not, but I'm hoping they would find grant money and stuff to do so. That would help everyone, but I don't know how that's going to, if or not that's going to happen.
This is Mike here. I'm not a tribal liaison or anything like that, but I'm thinking that's the direction that the direction was given at the meeting that we had 2 weeks ago.
Yep.
By asking the county if they would be looking at the reservation boundaries, and if there's anything in there that the county had that they would consider selling to the tribe. So that's kind of giving an indication that the direction they're heading.
Right, and that would, that would solve all the problems, because then the tribe gets the land that they want back. And the non-tribal members would at least get out from the property and the whole tax issue.
But then again, this is Mike. Then again, this is not just going to happen overnight.
No,
This is going
it's
to
gonna
take
take
some time.
Years.
Yeah.
Yeah, just so you know, Supervisor Ellison has his hand raised online.
Go ahead, Blake.
So Dan, when you say litigation, are you thinking that the tribal members who were deemed to have paid the taxes illegally are going to come after the county to get that money back from the school district, Northwood Tech and county? Is that how you see the litigation?
I see them going after the state, the county, the town, and the school district, yeah. I also see non-tribal members going after the tribe for the, sorry, I keep butchering this word, the possessory, I have problems with all those S's, possessory tax that they're trying to implement. So I see both federal and state litigation coming.
This is George, you say. If this issue just keeps going around in circles for many months to come, do we have any rough estimates of the impact on local budgets for next year? Town, school board, county, do we have any estimates of the financial impacts?
As far as our operating budgets, there won't be much of an impact. The town of Sanborn, I mean, is not that huge portion of our budget, and it's not that huge a portion of the school's budget. Any budget impact will be borne by the town most than anybody. There's always the chargeback scenario, which we would go to the town and to the school district and say, well, these taxes were illegal, they were settling with you every year, and you have to pay us back. But that's still a very last option for us, because it would cripple the school district.
And what's likely to happen to the town budget?
Well, they're probably gonna see a massive levy decrease. So they're not gonna have money to provide much services at all. And the reason why, and just get a little more detailed, why they were going for a loan today to refund the tax rebates is because the amount of money you can borrow is equal to 5% of your equalized value. And right now, the equalized value is still as if 100% of the property were taxed. January 1st, it won't be. So the amount of money they can borrow drops dramatically come January 1st. And they won't be able to borrow enough money to do it. So that's kind of what the rush is on their end. And that's, so but the state's making it clear that they're not going to allow them to do that. It's a mess. Yes. A constantly evolving mess. So what I tell you next time may be completely different. Just you're just getting the most updated one. Yeah, I hope I'm wrong and that the state comes through. You know, it may be bluster right now what they're saying. And maybe the governor just insists something happens, or the state legislative leaders realize it's better not to make this gigantic fight and just solve the problem. But we'll see.
Dan, did you say that we have the support of our new state legislators?
Yes,
to rectify the situation?
Yes, our new state legislators are supporting us. And however, you know, they're constrained by the fact that they're new and they got to go along with leadership in the end.
Any more questions for Dan? If not, I'll entertain a motion to go into closed session. Mike,
I make that motion to go into closed session.
I'll second it.
motion by Mike, seconded by Kathy to go into closed session. Is this a roll call vote? Can we do a roll call?
Carl.
Yes.
Wiener. Burdick.
Yes.
Ellefson.
Yes.
Mackenzie.
Yeah, I'd like to be clear though that this is for the purpose of discussion. This is for the purpose.
Microphone.
I agree, yes, this is for the purpose of discussing the employment evaluation of Mr. Dan Grady.
Correct. Negro.
Yes.
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 Okay, we're going to put everybody